All right, welcome to the Weekly Ward. I'm Dan Ward, as always. Next to me,
Kevin Jones.
yeah, and here we are, episode number 16. Holy cow. So, what we got on, besides talking about the new day, which is taking place right now in Modern, we got a couple things going on. We got Standard this weekend, SCG Baltimore, and a lot of releases everywhere. So everyone's kind of excited. We got a new limited format, we got a new Standard, and now we have a new day in Modern.
In Modern, yeah, that's
So,
perfect intro.
I'm pretty excited. So today we're going to start off with talking about the bannings, talking about the unbannings, kind of what's going on with that. Booty-O's, best cereal on the market right now. We'll get into some Standard toward the end, and we'll get what we're thinking about, what we're brewing, and stuff like that.
Everybody's mind is on new Standard with, we're leading up to SCG Baltimore in just a few days. So, like, and some people have, I know there's a couple events in the Midwest, and there's 2 events locally at our store. So a lot of people have Standard events to prepare for that are, somewhat large or what have you. And, like, most of the show will probably end up being about that. So if you guys out there, want to message into the chat a question you have or something like that, we're going to go over decks that we've been working on. We've both been doing a lot of testing, so we're going to talk about some of that stuff. Might pull a couple punches here and there because we have tournaments coming up. I know Dan's got the Pro Tour, and I've got 2 big SCG events. So, like, can't guarantee I'll give you our 75s, but or if we even have them yet. But we're going to get a lot of Standard on there, so hopefully you stay tuned for that.
Yes.
But first, we're going to talk about the pretty interesting, like, pretty earth-shattering bans and unbans that we have in Modern.
All right, I'm going to move my big
right
head.
into that.
Let me come close to Kev here. Let me come close to Kev.
Not too close. Everyone will realize, like, how you're just a larger, better-looking version of me.
Well, your girlfriend already figured that out.
Yeah. Oh, wow. We're going to have to edit that out, Scott.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant that has left the room, which is Ayavugan. So, I know I'm happy. I know you're kind of sad. You're an Eldrazi player.
I played some Eldrazi. I really liked it. It was refreshing for me to play a deck that wasn't like a mid-rangey controlling combo-y blue deck. Like, I played Splinter Twin and Scape Shift for most of my life in Modern. I played some fairies. I played some some other. I played the blue-red Delver deck when Cruise was legal. Whatever.
Gotcha.
I played a ton of those decks, like Steam Vents decks. Pretty much all of Modern. I played a little bit of blue-white here and there.
Okay.
But yeah, it was refreshing to play a deck that wasn't a control deck that was aggressive, where you counted damage, where you're in combat a lot. Like, it did a lot of things that I didn't usually do, and I like that. I mean, yeah, it was impressive, but, like, the mirror was really interesting.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. I think just as a general thing, broken formats are super underrated. Like, I actually enjoy, like, the Caw-Blade formats. I enjoy the
Pack Rat.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Like, there's a clear enemy.
Sure.
Which just makes, like, being one step ahead much easier.
Okay.
And, like, that's like the whole Jerry Thompson thing was to, like, play the best deck and change 3 cards every week and be, miles ahead of the field.
Sure.
And, like, I just kind of like those metagames more so than coming up with a whole new things. Like, I'd rather have, like, a whole bunch of really good decks than, like a whole bunch of, like, mediocre decks or a whole bunch of 50-50 matchups and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just like it.
I don't mind, like, I didn't mind the Eldrazi taking over, like, for a little while, because the only thing that it really bothered me with was that, like, it's good to have a deck just kind of, like, clean the format for a little bit, like Eldrazi did. But the problem was, we were coming off a time where everyone was still irritated, like yourself, as a Splinter Twin player, that it was banned. And so we now, finally, that Ayavugan's banned, we're going to see, I guess, the first big major tournament will be the Modern half of the Invitational. Yeah. You'll be able to see the post-Splinter Twin ban format. That's actually the actual format.
But maybe not. Like,
maybe
they unbanned Ancestral Vision and Sword of the Meek.
This is true.
Like, see, I think this is nice to do because I think, and I just wrote an article, shameless plug, humble brag, whatever, that went up on the site earlier in the week. And it is a full-on analysis of the ban list.
Here we are, Modern
And it
ban
went
list.
up at the end of last week, just before the ban list actually went up. And I did mention Sword of the Meek, and I did say that I thought they could unban it. And it's cool that I was right. But anyway, I just think that, like, as I said in my article, that they needed to bridge the gap in Modern. That there's such a disparity between the Affinity Zoo Infect Burn decks
Sure.
and the Tron and like slower mid-range decks.
Sure.
That like you really needed something to hold the format together, and that's what Splinter Twin and Black Green did. But without Splinter Twin, like Black Green decks have nothing to prey on, and as a result, like the Black Green decks kind of get eaten by the rest of the format because they either need to be super good against the aggressive decks or super good against the slow Tron type decks, and it's hard to beat both.
And now it's weird because they not only did they bring the card in that you're saying can beat like one of those decks like the Tron, but they nerfed Tron.
Yes, this is like sure, it looks like blue got better because Ancestral Vision and Sword of the Meek got unbanned, and that's not untrue. Like these are great cards for blue decks.
Sure.
But the best change for the blue decks is that Tron no longer has that just like crushing inevitability that Ivugan represented. Like you could stop their first things. You get the third turn Worm Coil, counter it. Fourth turn Karn, counter it. Blah blah blah. And then they just be like, all right, Tutor Emrakul will kill you. And it's just so frustrating. It's like, there's just like no way to interact with it if you didn't have a combo, which is why Splinter Twin was like so necessary before that.
All right, so not to go too crazy into this, Ancestral Vision.
Sure.
What deck would you put it in right now at this moment? What deck do you think it fits the best?
Probably like Blue Moon type deck.
Okay.
That's like the natural inclusion would be a Blue Moon type deck of any of the decks that exist right now.
Okay.
But you could also see it going into like a blue-white flash-oriented type deck or fairies.
Yeah,
it'd be good in both of those decks.
I was going to say fairies. I think is the biggest gainer from this.
Sure.
From Ancestral Vision coming back, they've always wanted that card in their deck. They're like turn one, and there's something card advantage so that they can get ahead.
And one thing that's interesting about that also is that because we've got Ancestral Vision, which is effectively a 0 mana spell being introduced into the format.
Sure.
And we've just unbanned Sword of the Meek, which obviously makes the stock of Thopter Foundry go way up.
Yeah.
And cheap artifacts and cheap spells get better because this deck needs to get on the board to make sure that its combo, wins them the game before they lose.
Sure.
They need to stabilize before they can win their combo. So, like, because of this, I think that Spellstutter Sprite and Fairies in general gets a lot better because cheaper spells are the spell density of the format has shifted downward considerably towards like 1s and 0s. So like I think that the Spellstutter Sprite is very good, and I almost think that the best Ancestral Vision type Fairies deck would be one with white instead of black.
Okay, interesting.
Like I like Restoration Angel a lot. I like Spellstutter Sprite obviously a lot. I like the mana in the Manland. I like the Flying Manland more than the Unblockable Manland.
Gotcha.
You can still play like Wall of Omens type stuff for the aggro matchups and life gain like Kitchen Finks. Like you can do a lot of that stuff, and you're not running out of like your 1-for-1s. Like see, the blue-white deck was fine earlier, but now your 1-for-1s are like rewarded by Ancestral Vision.
Yeah, because you're going to be able to.
Whereas
refill.
like you just kind of had to wait to win the game with like just going up 1 over the course of many turns, or just like hitting a big Sphinx's Revelation or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
all right. So you took Visions. I'll take Sword.
Sure.
Everyone obviously knows about the combo, and if you don't know, you basically make 1/1s, and then when the 1/1s die, the sword comes back, yada, yada, yada. I think the biggest gainer for this deck is obviously a deck that's been very fringe, but has been waiting for a card like this to be unbanned, and it's Tezzerator.
Sure.
Modern Tezzeret, if you're not familiar with that deck, blue-black, it's another... I keep feeling like the longer Modern grows, you see these artifact decks come out of nowhere. So like Affinity is arguably the best deck, and it's been around since the beginning of the format, right? Now like halfway through the time, somewhere along there, Zach Elsick put together another artifact deck. Lantern Control. Now, is there a chance that we have an aggressive deck, right? A super aggressive deck, and we have a super control deck on, like these are on different parts of the spectrum.
Lantern
now we
has a super control deck?
I think so. I think Lantern's ultimate. It's like a prison deck.
Well, Lantern is a prison deck, but a prison deck and a control deck, it doesn't exactly...
It controls what you're doing.
Yeah, at heart, it's a control deck for sure, but it doesn't operate on the same contingencies, the same axes that a traditional control deck does. It's very unique in that regard, and I think that if you try to attack Lantern like you would attack a normal control deck, you're going to fail horrendously.
Sure, but I'm just saying in the, the deck building scheme of things.
Sure, it is on the opposite end of the spectrum from Affinity.
And now with Tezzeret, it kind of is the deck that's in the middle. It can have those fast, explosive starts, but it can also just search up Ensnaring Bridge and sit there and just wait to kill you.
The cool thing about the deck is that it can use Ensnaring Bridge much more proactively than our deck. It can just work to empty its hand, and it can play Ensnaring Bridge, and at any point it can sacrifice the bridge to Thopter Foundry.
Yep.
and attack, or it can just, because
Drain you out.
a million 1/2s, it can just, or a million 1/1s from Dr. Sword combo, it can just draw a card for turn and attack with all its 1/1s. So, like, Bridge is, like, almost one-sided in that regard.
Yeah, that makes sense. But where I was going with this, and by the way, Andrea, this is a shout-out to you. I know you've been playing Tezzerator all the time in the last 2 months. So, yeah, congrats. And
Tezzeret Agent of Bolus is just absurd.
yeah,
It's just so much
ridiculous.
better than it was before.
So the one thing I will say that I think is interesting as well, with Sword of the Meat coming back, and if it is put in a deck like Tezzeret, like, with Affinity being the #1 deck and not getting nerfed, people are already playing anywhere from like 3 to 5 or 6 even hate cards for this deck.
Sure.
Now Lantern is a real deck. People, I think it's a not tier 1, but 1/5, right?
Yeah, Lantern's
And now
definitely
if
a real deck.
Tezzerator is a 1/5 or a 1 deck, like a tier 1,
Yeah.
if it becomes that, or a Sword deck becomes that, like this, I don't know how the numbers are going to be skewed based on the fact that there's so much hate in the sideboard that like your initial game plan on what you're trying to do is not going to come to fruition more times than not.
So what you're getting at is basically splash damage, right? Like,
Yeah.
so the idea is that because
Friendly fire.
Affinity is public enemy #1, we're worried about incidental sideboard bullets. Like, people have silver bullets in their sideboard for Affinity that also hose the Dr. Sword deck, and that's the thing that you're worried about, right?
And not only that, but also decks that are going to be coming back, in my opinion, are a deck like Grixis Control, which plays 2-3 Colgan's commands somewhere in their 75.
Yeah, I don't think
like,
Dr. Sword is nearly as oppressive as it was when it was first around.
I agree.
I think that it's cool that they did it. Like, it's cool that they unbanned it, and we're going to see some interesting stuff happen. It is possible, as a cautionary, as a caution, that it could be way better than other fair decks at closing the game because you don't really need any other win conditions. Like, mid-range decks like Jund, Abzan, that type of deck, Grixis Control even, they have to play Pia Kiran, Tarmogoyf, Siege Rhino, Lingering, so they have to play win conditions. Like, your thing that keeps you alive just incidentally wins you the game. Like, it's what you do to stabilize from 5 or 6 life, and then it's what you do to attack once you're at parity. You just stabilize the board, make 4 tokens, untap, make 5 tokens, they're dead. It's just like, the other thing about it, so it might be way better than every other fair deck, and consequentially push other fair decks out of the metagame the same way that something like Bloodbraid Elf or Jace the Mind Sculptor would have.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's something we could be worried about. But I would just rather, like, this deck be good because Sword of the Meek, it's cool.
Yeah, and Tezzeret's cool too. Think about it. Like, besides Jund running Maelstrom Pulse, it costs 4. You're not abrupt decaying it. Like, there's very few cards that actually have interaction to just kill Tezzeret.
Oh, there's, like, almost none.
Yeah, like, it'll be interesting to see if the junk style decks adapt this new Vindicate that you lose 3 life.
Unmaking? Sure.
Yeah, so that may be like a one of now, like the Jund decks have theirs, but like
it's
it
also
depends.
interesting to see if something like Thundermaw Hellkite sees play with all the Thopter tokens around. I know that a few friends of mine who are Jund enthusiasts have been singing the praises of Thundermaw Hellkite.
Yeah. So if you
pretty good against Affinity.
If
as
you
well.
play Grixis, it's come up like 2 or 3 times, so I want to mention now. Everyone's saying Ancestral Visions
and
with Dwellers.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
But like if
you're living it, you're doing it.
Like if you're casting Dwellers on a board where you can afford to cast a card drawing spell instead of a removal spell, you're probably like pretty far ahead anyway, right?
Yeah, but it also gives you the familiarity to be able to cast like any spell.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, getting the visions is good, but being able to get like Colgan's commands or something else is like.
Well, I mean, I think Dwellers is probably fine as like a 2-of in that deck.
Sure,
for sure.
Even
I just don't think that like
two-of.
it being able to flashback Ancestral Vision is terribly scary.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean,
5
it's good.
mana, 4/4 menace, draw 3 cards.
Yeah, 5 mana, 4/4 menace, draw 3 cards.
That's pretty good.
But like, it could have been a 5 mana, 4/4 menace, kill your dude, get back a dude. Like, it's already doing great stuff. And like, the equity on draw 3 cards is going to be awesome in some situations when you're
terrible.
And other times it's going to be like, I can draw 3 cards, and then if they kill my guy with a 1 mana removal spell, I'm going to take 8 damage on the crackback. Like, maybe I really need to flashback this Go for the Throat, or this Lightning Bolt.
You know what I just realized?
What?
Not really just realized, but it's a sorcery, right?
Yeah.
But like if it comes off on your turn, and this is great because we're talking about Lantern and we're talking about Tezzeret.
Yeah.
You can make your opponent draw 3 cards so you can attack with Ensnaring Bridge on the
Yeah,
table.
it's target player draws 3 cards.
It's like,
Yep.
oh, here's some cards.
Yeah, you can do that. That's the thing with Dwellers. You can just Dwellers them in your main phase.
What about with the blue-red enchantment that just came out?
Oh, Fevered Vision? Getting a little deep with one of my standard decks.
We're getting little fevered visions over here. All right.
Yeah, so... Oh, the other thing about Sword of the Meek before we move on is that we were talking about all the splash damage from artifacts. The only activated ability that Sword of the Meek has is 2 mana equip. Target creature, equipped creature gets +1/+2.
Sure.
The activated ability is Thopter Foundry. Now, you would still play Thopter Foundry, but there's nothing that dictates that you need to be artifact heavy to do this.
Sure.
You can play Monastery Mentor, Gitaxian Probe them, and put the sword out of the graveyard onto your monk token.
That's pretty sick.
Like you can trigger it with Monastery Mentor, Spellstutter Sprite, Lingering Souls. Like we can go on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of different ways. Like they've just given like blue-white X decks or blue-black X decks like a lot of action here. Okay. Like a lot of flexibility, and I think that like it's a super exciting modern format. I for one like when I knew something from Eldrazi was going to get banned. So I'm like sitting here and I'm like, what am I going to do for the Modern Invitational? What am I going to do for the first few opens of Season 2? What am I going to do for GP Charlotte,
Yeah.
Like, it was like, am I going to play Dan's Boggle deck? Because, like, I don't know. I mean, I've only been able to, like, get out of it so many times. It's good pretty much every time he plays it, and I just make up some dumb excuse every time and then lose. So, like, I'm probably going to have to play Dan's Boggle deck. And then I borrowed a Kiki Cord deck in Indie, and I played that deck, and that deck was awesome. Okay. I had a lot of fun with that deck, and I was thinking that, like, I was going to play Kiki Cord in the post-ban metagame. And then they were like, oh, all these blue cards are unbanned. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to play blue deck, whatever. Buy Kiki Cord.
By the way, sorry, but by the way. So the one.
Sorry, Boggle.
So with you bringing up Boggles, I don't know if I'm going to play that the Invitational. I actually think this tournament, I'm probably not going to play it. Not because I don't think it's good. I actually think it's gotten better because Red-Green Tron now
These
is
cards
almost,
all make it better.
Yeah, all the cards make it better. Plus Red-Green Tron is like the second worst matchup for the deck. So like with that being almost basically gone now, it's good. But I think one of the bigger gainers that used to be in my Boggle deck with this announcement is Suppression Field.
Sure.
I think like obviously it shuts down Sword of the Meek, but all the other decks that are going to come out, I think all get hit. And you talked about splash damage, right? So like Suppression Field is good against like almost all of the decks in the format. There's a couple decks. It's not good versus burn.
Every deck plays fetch lands. Every deck plays like the decks that don't play fetch lands just play like an absurd amount of activated abilities, like Affinity.
Just going deeper than that, like the activated abilities now on all your creatures for like Kiki Cord, the sacrifice, those cost. Like there's.
Well, the thing about that deck is that they're not going to generally lose to a card like Suppression Field. I mean, it
slows them down.
It does slow them down, and it does hose their fetch lands. But like that deck, and I noticed from albeit limited experience, but I noticed that it's kind of a slow, grindy, control-y type deck anyway. It masquerades as like a creature deck that clogs the board, and it does that just to like be able to untap with mana in play and cards in hand, and then like have all these options available to it, and then figure out how to win the game or grind them out over the course of a few turns. And like it's not nearly as green as it appears, and it's actually plays a lot like a twin type deck would.
True.
And consequentially, I think that it would be less impactful against that type of deck, and more so against the decks that are trying to get out on the board in the first 3 turns.
So you can't say Affinity. I'm going to ask you a question. With this statement right here by Wizards banning and unbanning these cards, what's the best deck in Modern other than Affinity?
The best deck that existed before?
The best deck right now. What is the best deck right now without saying Affinity?
And I can't say, like, Dr. Sword deck?
No, you can't.
Okay.
It's not a deck yet.
The best deck that already existed before the bannings.
What do you think exactly? What you think with the banning announcements and the unbanning? What do you think the best deck is? I don't really want you to say Sword because you haven't built the deck. No one's tested it.
Exactly.
So like the deck that gained the most, I should say, that was already in Modern.
So like when something stands pretty tall and like the taller trees all fall down, that's the tallest tree then, right?
Yeah.
It's like Abzan Collected Company.
You think that is?
I mean, it's definitely the second best deck before the banning. It's like Eldrazi, Affinity, Abzan Company.
See, it's interesting for you to say that because like a lot of people said the only reason why Abzan Company came back was because of how good Eldrazi was. And it was such a good matchup for them.
It wasn't.
And now with Eldrazi...
It was like 50-50.
Well, then that's really awkward then, because the deck really kind of went away and was like not a deck in the format forever.
Yeah.
And then like all of a sudden had this like resurgence.
Well, it went away because it had a bad Splinter Twin matchup or a sub 50-50 Splinter Twin matchup. That's why it went away.
Yeah, I guess
think.
that's fair. I guess that's fair.
And I think that it was like it would occasionally struggle to combat like well-built Abzan or Jund decks because the discard spells. When your deck is, a lot of pretty bad creatures, like 1 and 2 mana dorks and that type of thing, and you get Thought Seized repeatedly, or Thought Seized and then your hand is attacked,
You're drawing
and
from
board
the
is
top,
attacked,
yeah.
and there's a bunch of different you really need to like string a bunch of things together to get off the ground, and that deck kind of capitalized on the fact that nobody was really interacting with them too much.
Okay.
But like a well-built Twin deck or a well-built Jund deck will attack from multiple angles and put them into a bunch of corners, and that's why like Abzan Company faltered, I believe.
Okay.
And I think it came back because the ability of those decks was greatly hindered by Eldrazi.
Okay,
And
fair
being
enough.
banned, obviously.
Fair enough. Well, everyone has some time now. The announcement's made. Get brewing. Start playing some new Modern starting Friday. Hopefully this weekend we're going to have some results in from Baltimore on the Classic, and that'll be a good telltale sign for what we have in store for us for the Invitational, which both of us are going. Hopefully you're not going to be playing the Classic. You're going to be crushing the Standard portion. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll play. Hopefully I'll play 2 days of the Invitational.
No. I mean the Classic this weekend. Hopefully you don't have to play the
Modern Classic this weekend? It's actually... Oh, it's in effect or no?
Yeah, Friday.
Oh, yeah, duh. Okay, yeah, so... well, our local Modern at the store is on Monday, so I figured that every ban list update goes into effect on Monday.
Yeah, like our store, they have to follow what our store does, right?
Well, like... I was just like, the first time I'll be able to play post-ban Modern is Monday, so that's when the ban goes into effect or whatever. That's what just happened in my head. But no, I get it. If I scrub out this weekend, I don't know. I'm not going to play Thopter Sword. I don't have any of the cards. I don't have any idea how to build it.
Okay.
But if someone, builds it and hands it to me, I'd probably play it.
Sounds like you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
But yeah, so...
So the bannings came out Monday. Let's talk about what happened before Monday. Let's talk about the pre-release. Everyone hopefully had the chance to come down to their local store, crack some packs, build some sealed decks. I was able to play one event this weekend. I was pretty happy about it. I played a two-headed giant with hashtag Cash Like Stratton. Mm-hmm. And we went 4-0 and won our two-headed. Much to his chagrin, he didn't want to play Triskaphobia.
Yep.
And we won 2 matches because of that. I also played, so he was like a black-white control deck, and I was playing like a blue-green deck with clues. Like everything had clues in it. Like I had the clue enchantment that whenever a creature dies, you get a clue. Then I had the one where like if you can, I think that same one exiles a creature to gain 2 life. I had a lot of Gone Missings. The 5 mana, put 1 on top, investigate.
Yeah, that card seems super good. There's a 5 mana card that's Smite the Monstrous that investigates as well.
Yeah.
That seems pretty good. Like, if you have Smite the Monstrous as a 4 mana instant, the 5 mana card, Humble the Brute, I think it's called, it puts it at 1 mana to get a clue, which is probably a pretty good rate. 1 mana for additional mana for a clue is probably fine.
So I felt blue-green was fine for the two-headed. It was definitely good. There wasn't enough removal, but the fact that like Alex had a lot of removal in white-black, it kind of panned out. Mm-hmm. What was your experience like?
I played 2 pre-releases. I played a Friday midnight here at the shop. Was positively exhausted. I'm definitely starting to feel my age these days. I get up and I come here and I work most of the week now, and then the other ends of the week I'm traveling and stuff. So like I'm starting to feel 28, and like I was pretty tired. I played FNM as the last time I could play Manus Rider. Played some Jeskai Black at FNM.
Goodbye, Manus Rider. Goodbye.
And then after that, we played the pre-release, and my deck was just like a boring red-green werewolf deck with a really good, solid mana curve, some fiery tempers and stuff.
Okay.
When I played against like good decks, like I played against a good like black-white delirium removal heavy bomb heavy deck, and it wasn't even close. I actually lost to 2 black-white decks.
Okay.
One of them played like the giant spirit rare that makes spirits for 4 mana. I don't know if you know what it's like. It's like a flying horse thing.
Yeah. I know what you're talking
Drog
about.
Skull Cavalry, maybe?
Okay.
I'm not sure. But they played that, and I died. Instantly, pretty much.
Okay.
And then the other guy, our coworker Josh, he had the 1 white common that's like tap, discard a card, tap target creature.
Yeah.
And I was about to make like an attack that was going to crush him, and he had 1 card in hand and 7 lands. And I'm like, combat, and he
From the floorboards?
let me go and then did that, yes.
So he discarded a card, tapped your creature, then from the floorboards is you out of the game?
Well, he just floorboards. He let me attack so that like
You could
my
tap
math
a
was
creature?
messed up.
Okay, gotcha.
And he didn't tap my creature, and he let me attack, and then like thinking I'm gonna win the game, he just like, no, well, gain 5 life and make 5 2/2s and untap and attack you back and put you to like 1 and cripple you.
Oh
and I'm
my
just
God.
like, oh,
How did this happen?
yeah, I'm just like, what happened here? Like I thought I was gonna win this game, and then he like draws and then like discards to tap my creature and discards the 3/5 madness creature, and I'm just like, this is unbelievable.
Oh, man.
So like, yeah, so I mean, I'm not bad beating or whatever. It's a pre-release. I don't actually care. But I played a fine deck that was good against decks that didn't really like have much going on. And when I played against solid decks with removal and good creatures, I felt pretty outclassed.
Okay.
Saturday I played another pre-release. There's actually a shop in my hometown too. This is not exactly my hometown, but there's a small local shop, and I played there on Saturday night, and I went 3-2. One of my wins was a buy or a no-show. And,
Sweet.
My deck was 42 cards, 3 colors, Esper, Investigate, Mill. And it was like, I had like a whole bunch of enchantments that were all like, it was like, the enchantment that's like whenever you sack a clue, you mill them, and the other one's like whenever you cast instant or sorcerer, you get a clue.
Okay.
And then I had like 2 of the tap 2 target creatures investigate card, which by the way I think is awesome and limited.
Okay.
I think that card is very good.
Blinding Beam?
Yeah, basically Blinding Beam. Expose Evil, I think it's called. That card was great. I had the Delirium 2-drop 03 that like mills them, and then if you have Delirium, it mills them on the upkeep for 3. I was like, and then I had the rare, the 13 rare that you put back into play as a creature, and then
what LSV called what do you call it? The GT? He tweeted that out
he
when he
called
first
it
saw
GT.
it.
It was
limited.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
That card was unbelievable. Amazing and limited. I mean, it's a rare, obviously, so like, you know, your Pro Tour pod will be impacted by it like relatively small amount of the time, but it was still insane.
Yeah.
Like, it was an insane limited card. It's totally absurd.
Speaking of insane limited cards, we had it in the chat here. Arlen Cord is a hell of a card. I agree with you. I actually splashed red in my blue-green deck, the two-headed deck.
Yeah.
Two-headed giant deck that I had for that card. At initial reading the card, I guess I was just overthrown by the fact that it was the most expensive card in the set when it came out. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to understand more and more every time I see that card played why it is. And I think it's the best Planeswalker in the set.
You think Arlen's the best Planeswalker in this set?
I think so.
I don't
lot of
think
people
his
think
competition is too stiff, to be honest.
Yeah, Jace is unplayable.
It's not unplayable.
I think it's
waiting for its time in the sun. And so, like, the thing about
but it doesn't have sunscreen. It's just going to get burned away.
Pale Jace, hashtag Pale Jace. So, like, the thing with a card like Jace is that it looks best in, like, a slower mid-rangey or control deck. And that type of deck is really dangerous to play week 1 because you don't know what answers you're supposed to have.
Sure.
And, like, I don't think there'll be a single Jace, maybe a single Jace in the top 16 of the Open.
Maybe.
Like, maybe a single one in the sideboard or one of in the main deck.
I'm willing to make a bolder statement.
You don't think there'll be a single one?
I don't think there'll be a single deck in the top 8 that has blue in it. Unless it's the blue-white humans deck.
That's basically white.
Exactly.
So you don't think blue is very good in this?
I don't think blue is very good.
I would love to prove you wrong.
I know you would.
A lot of my best decks are blue.
So we can't make a bet, but it can't be like, oh, I'm playing 3-color Collected Company, or hey, I'm playing like 4-color Converge that has blue cards in it.
What's the best blue card in Standard?
It needs to be the best blue card in Standard is Reflector Mage.
Yep. Not Jace. It's pretty close.
It's close. Okay, Jace is better, but it's Reflector Mage is like lost by like a little
Reflector
bit.
Mage is an unbelievable Magic card. It's like, I cannot remember a time when a 3-mana War effect has defined a format to that extent. It defines a format the same way Jace the Mind Sculptor did almost. It's like, if your creature is just a dumb creature with a good rate, it's probably unplayable.
See, it's kind of not fair to Mana War either, because obviously it's better than Mana War. That's 3 color. It's 2 different colors. But if Collected Company wasn't in the format, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Yes, because you're
it would just be a
on mana.
good card.
So disgusting.
Well, it's not only you're cheating on mana, but you're doing it at instant speed.
Yeah.
which is ridiculous.
No,
'Cause
Collected
not
Company
only-
is an insane card.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. I think that Collected Company got much worse, though, because the chief boon of the Collected Company decks is to play as many colors as possible so that you get the highest value from your collected companies.
Okay.
And it's definitely less able to do that with the mana base is getting so much worse.
Sure.
Like, Bant is surviving. I've been playing a lot of Bant Company recently, and the deck is fine. It's a deck that's going to be played, but I really didn't love the mana at all. And your collected companies are insane because you get Bounding Crisis and Reflector Mage. It's just unfair. But when you don't, when your first 3 lands come to play tapped and stuff like that, it leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, and then when you're like sideboarding, like one of the things that like I told you while we were testing is just like your deck gets so much worse when cards like Transgress the Mind come in.
Yeah.
Because then like your creatures are just okay creatures, and you lose the capability of playing Collected Company.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. The thing about the lack of fetch lands and the lack of like decks that facilitate you having like a Painful Truths thing where you'd be playing, a bunch of Painful Truths fetch lands and like the way the old Jeskai decks worked, the way the old Jace decks in general worked, is not how Jace decks are going to work anymore.
Okay.
So like you're much more likely to leave your Jace untapped through your opponent's turn, and as a result can do things like discard your company lest it be transgressed. Like that's something that I've
Sure.
actually done a
Okay.
lot
I think that,
in theory, and I mean because the rest of your cards are so similar, like the only way that they're not is when you're worried about like a super impactful threat, like a Thunderbreak Region, a Kalitas, that type of thing.
Okay.
That's when like it becomes super important to have like a Reflector Mage or a Krasis, but otherwise like you kind of just have dorks
okay.
in this type of deck. So like if you're, if you discard your company and they hit an extra, Krasis or an extra Sylvan Advocate or whatever, like it's not, or they can't hit Sylvan Advocate, sorry. They hit one of your premium 3-drops, it's okay because you put your company in your graveyard and giving yourself the best chance to like, get through the late game.
Okay.
So like we're just seeing. I don't know. And how do you feel about this? Like, do you think that JSX will play out differently? Do you agree with that at all?
I do think that with the fetch lands going away, Jace is a slower card, so it's still
Yeah.
insane. And I think that more people are going to be utilizing the fact that they can actually get card advantage from drawing and discarding. And what I mean by card advantage, I guess it's not really advantage when you're going 1-for-1.
Oh, but like Madness?
Yeah, well, Madness is one outlet.
Yep.
But I also think Delirium's another outlet that people
Yeah.
have, this is a new ability that people are going to be able to use. But just the card selection aspect of it. How many times have you've been you've played Jace a lot, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many times have you been like, man, I wish I didn't have to flip it this turn because I have this 2 cards in my hand that not necessarily I want, and I'd rather be able to get 1 card deeper.
Yeah,
But
sure.
it happens, right? It's not. It maybe not a
Yeah,
large
sometimes
number.
you'd rather loot and you could like
Because there's
cut
been
or dig or something to
from
mitigate
even the
that.
little bit of time where I played Jason, my Grixis Dragons this last
Yeah.
3 weeks of Standard. There was times where I was like, man, I have a flip Jace. It's not
Yeah.
doing anything. I'm going tick
Uh-huh.
up 1. Where drawing a card and discarding would have been huge.
Yeah, I see that.
So-
I think that in that regard, you would aggressively flip your first Jace, and then backup Jaces would be managed by flashing something back to get less than 5 cards in your yard, and whatever, and then looting or there was. See, you had so much more control over both aspects of your Jace
Sure.
in the old format, where you could oh, I don't want to flip my second one. I'll just keep looting. I'll just delve my graveyard away and cast Dig Through Time, or I'll just murderous cut that and flash it back, and now I don't have
Sure.
to worry about that.
But now it's not going to happen anymore.
No, now it's gonna be I need to flip my Jace when I can because I might not be able to flip it again, or that type of thing.
I just realized while we're doing this, I'm looking at the background of our webpage here, KerwinsGameStore.com.
Yeah.
And it looks like the Shadows of War Innistrad, box.
Yeah, I just
Kinda cool.
thought that it was the same thing.
And we have the pack right here.
Oh, we forgot to do that. We were
We're
talking
gonna do
about
it right
the
now.
limited.
We're gonna do it right
Forgot
now.
to do
Okay,
that.
so this is for you, Am I? Even though I just saw that you got on here. We're gonna move to our decks after this, but we're gonna do a Crack-a-Pack, and we're gonna do, I guess, a pick one, pack one.
Yes, so we're gonna take 2 people who don't know their way around a limited table, and they're gonna have
I got
we're gonna have
lost.
us give some limited analysis.
Yeah,
So,
when they just started the limited discussions, I was at the bar.
yes. So Am
Alright, here
I
we go.
our the chat's resident limited all-star is
We got a spirit token.
got a spirit token.
Here, I'm gonna hand
That's
them
the
to
spirit,
you.
boys.
We got a planes.
Got a planes. My face won't betray me. Is it a flip card?
All right. I don't know. Is it? No,
is.
it's not a flip card.
I mean, it's
Oh well,
literally
that
a
is.
flip
It's an
card right here.
uncommon. All right. So we're gonna go down the line here. I'm just gonna read them off.
Sure.
All right. I'll hand them to you.
Furtive homunculus.
We will
Thank you
get
very
this
much.
there. Thank you. Crack a pack.
2-1 Skulky guy for 1.
All right, so he'll
For
go in the
2,
good
sorry.
pile. He's a good comment.
Yeah.
Then we have Devilthorn Fox.
Devilthorn Fox is a 3-1 for 2.
All right, he's okay too. Catalog.
I like this card fine. Draw 2, discard 1.
So far, so good. These cards are
Yeah,
good.
these cards are great. They're blue
Blue
and white.
Caller's Accomplice.
Okay, so I think every one of these, for those of you who have vested interest in Limited, every one of these effects in black and white is good.
Value, hashtag value.
This is the one it's a 2-2 for 2, then you get a 4-4 for 2 at sorcery speed when you exile it from the graveyard.
This next
Pretty
one's
great.
quite interesting. Merciless Resolve.
Sure.
As an
I don't
additional
actually know what
cost
this-
to cast this, you have to sack a creature, land, draw 2.
Oh, you can sack a land though, so
Yeah.
it's a 3-mana Altars Reap
That's
where you
what
can
I mean.
sack a land.
And it's an instant too, which I like about the
I
card.
think this card's fine. I think one of in most of your limited decks is
Sure.
probably fine.
The Vanilla All-Star himself, Hulking Devil.
I guess there was copyright infringement on Cobble Brute from Return to Ravnica,
Yeah, they didn't
so
wanna reprint
we
the
got
Cobble
Hulking Devil is more in flavor.
Then we have this next one that looks, I guess, at first glance, like not a spider, but like something weird.
I might have to stop you for a second.
What do we got? We got to stop. All
The
right, we're
flavor
stopping.
text on this card is absurd. Fear the patient devil, the one who is calm in the midst of chaos. Beware the silent devil, the one whose cackle does not mingle with the others. This dude does not look patient to me. This guy is just like, hey, I'm patient. I only burnt down half the building. Like, what is
Well,
this?
that makes sense. He is a 5/2.
Ironic flavor text, haha.
And he loses to this next guy. He loses to Kessig Dire Swan.
Oh, because it's a 6/6?
It's a
and the other guy's a
6/6.
5/2?
Yeah.
Delirium has trample as long as they were 4? Okay, yeah, I'm not thrilled about that.
All right, guess what else? What's his name? Cobblebrute Jr. Cobblebrute's cousin, Hulking Devil. You know what it loses to? It burns half the village down and then realizes it got hit with dead weight.
Yeah. It's some dead weight they had to trim
Dead
it back.
weight.
Dead weight's a great limited card. It's honestly, it's actually a fair constructed card too. It triggers delirium and stuff. It's funny because, why should I be watching this over LSV and Gabby?
Because we're better looking.
I don't know. I mean, are you a baseball fan? Are you a wrestling fan? We had a lot of wrestling references.
Yeah. Anyway, back to what we're doing.
I don't know, man. You should watch it because I can't watch myself because I have to produce it, or I would definitely watch myself. Tell me what happens, please. I'm in a mild fugue state. I don't remember what happened.
All right, you're crazy. So
I know.
dead weight, obviously good, decent removal.
Yeah.
Amber Eyewolf. This guy's the pump guy.
3-mana 1/2.
I think he's fine. I'm not like hot about him.
fine.
He feels not
Or
forgotten.
2-mana 1/2 actually. It's probably fine.
Not forgotten.
That card's sweet.
What does
too.
this card do?
Put target card from a graveyard on the top or bottom of its owner's library. Put a 1/1 white spirit creature token flying out of the battlefield. I think this card's great because you have so many clues, and like you've got an effect out of the cards that give you clues. So as a result, like the clues don't really cost you a full card, and then you put this card on top, and you can crack a clue and get your card right away. So it's a lot closer to a regrowth than you'd think.
Yeah, we're doing a crack a pack. We don't usually do this, but for the new set, maybe we'll do it next week too.
We're almost never limited content.
Yeah, we're like all about this
And like
constructed.
we're all about constructed, and like we just thought that because it's the day when all the shipments came in, so we thought we would pop a pack and
if you
just go over it, whatever. Like we're gonna get back into constructed in a minute. If you don't like this, we
Yeah.
apologize.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm not
foray into something
apologizing.
new.
This is fun.
yeah, whatever.
This is something we did.
I
I'm
got to
not
see the rare, man.
apologizing.
I'm on pins and needles here.
All right, spiteful motives.
Card is gas.
There you go. Now
Oh,
we
we
have
got
a
a caller.
follower.
Yes.
Thank you for joining Team KGS.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your patronage. All right, so 3 in a red. Here, show the fans. Show them what
Spiteful
they want to
motives.
see.
The person who just followed us had an interesting name. I just wanted to let them know that Taco Cat backwards is also Taco
We're showing the
Cat.
cards. You got to look at the camera.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Kevin,
Spiteful motives.
get there.
Flash, enchanted creature gets +3/+0 and has first strike. 4-mana enchant creature. Yeah.
This is one of the cards we both played this weekend.
Yes, I played this card this weekend.
Fleeting Memories. So if you like clues,
When
or the
it-
game clue, and it has green in it, so
Oh,
look at the
it's
green
green in
screen.
the art? That's crazy. That's so funny.
That's great.
But yeah, so this card is like an engine for a mill deck in Limited, and I think it's fine.
All right.
Yeah.
Breakneck Rider.
Yeah, I mean,
3-3
this
for
guy's
3.
great. 3-3 for 3. Flips into a 4-3 on the backside.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. We appreciate your follow.
And now, by you following, I think we are better than, you know,
I
Gabby
don't think we're better
and
than
LSV.
anybody.
All right, we're not better, but
it's not
we
a
appreciate
competition,
it.
man. Everybody producing content for the community is a positive
It's positive.
influence.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this thing's good, so it attacks as a 5-3. Yeah, this werewolf is great.
And the rare. See, this isn't a fair one. We're going to have to do what the first pick would be if the rare wasn't in
What
there.
is the rare absurd?
The rare's not a... Okay, the rare's kind of absurd for limited.
All right, what is it?
I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to show everybody. It's coming soon. It's coming soon. Bam! Avison's Judgment.
Oh, sure.
So everyone should know this card by now. If not, you're dealing 2 damage, and then it's basically Fireball.
So it's Fireball with Madness.
Fireball
I'm
with
actually going to
Madness.
tell you here. Not every deck is guaranteed to be able to play this card.
Pack 1, pick 1. Pack 1, pick 1. You're telling me you're taking something else over this. And tell me why.
I might take this.
Okay, you may, but, like, realistically here, you're sitting at the...
I guess this is just a dead weight that costs 2.
Exactly. It's
Yeah,
a dead weight
whatever.
that has
You're right. It's just insane.
Come on, we're talking limited. And Jim Davis, he's the best around, and no one's ever going to take him down.
Easy to say when you win all
This
the...
card is gas.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah!
Thanks, Jim. I was like, oh...
Jimmy D's. Welcome to Team KGS. Daddy Father.
All right, great. All right, so are we done with this? This is the slam dunk first.
Okay,
pick.
that's a slam dunk, but we got to talk about... Okay, so are we just... What else do we got in here? We went over it. I guess
mean,
it's pretty simple. It goes that and then
It's this
dead
and
weight.
then dead weight. Probably this werewolf is fine.
See, Am agrees with me. First time it ever happened.
Yeah.
If the rare's not there, dead weight.
I'm not playing that mill card.
So we're going to call...
I don't know.
Kevin, you're going to be Avison's Judgment, and I'm just going to be, I guess, dead weight.
Sure.
Like I am normally.
I think
as
we're
Ed
both
would say.
dead weight when it comes to limited.
Limited. Whoa! Take it easy. And Jim Davis hype.
Yeah.
All right, that was fun. We're going to do that next week, too, I guess. That was pretty cool. Give us some feedback if you guys enjoyed us cracking that pack.
That was fun. I mean,
waste some time
we
doing it.
floundered through the limited evaluation. Yeah. I got the nice hoodie.
Players Champ.
Aha.
You're lucky.
Players Champ,
Did you get
4th
to-
place.
Did you get to mingle with Jimmy D's?
Oh, yeah. Jimmy's great.
No, I mean play. At
Did
the
I play
Players
him at the
Championship.
Players Championship? No.
Lucky.
I played Todd. Todd crushed me.
Todd did crush.
I played Jacob Wilson. He drew real bad.
All right, so we did the Crack-A-Pack. Where were we? We're starting off with Standard. I want to talk about some Standard decks. One of the first ones. Thank you, Ross Merriam, for putting content out. I know you just explained that we, like everyone,
Yeah. Thank
in
you,
the
Ross Merriam,
multiverse.
for putting content out and playing in tournaments because I never
It's great.
lose to him.
And oh, shots fired to Ross. Ross a good guy. He's
Yeah, Ross is
beaten me
great.
every time. It's funny because you've beat him every time, and he's beaten me every time.
I
we
played
play.
him at the Players Championship. I beat him.
You did.
I did.
I lost to him numerous times. So we're gonna take some of his information here because we're getting ready for Star City Baltimore. You're playing in it.
I am.
I'm gonna be watching it and playing an IQ here. I got 4 weeks in a row after this on the road. I want to take a little break. So let's talk about the first deck here. Black White Midrange, new to the scene, or some would call this the new Abzan control deck.
Yeah, this is
Without green.
This is the Mardu green, Abzan, black green with the rock deck. This is the mid-range attrition-based deck that will be, this will be the pillar of the format for this type of deck. This is what the people who played a lot of Mardu green or Abzan in the previous format are going to flock to because it does similar things. It plays in a similar way. It plays some discard spells. Oh no, we don't have any discard spells. I just assumed the transgressors were main. They're not. But yeah, I mean, it plays removal spells. It plays card draw. This is like... It's just a mid-range attrition deck. I like it. I wrote about a similar deck. I liked the chat is pretty ridiculous right now. I'm sorry, you guys distracted me. I liked the Eldrazi a little bit better than this creature suite.
Okay.
These creatures are all pretty value-based, which I guess I understand. You want to just go up one with almost every card here. Like, that's cool. This deck is probably pretty good. I think that the strength of Gideon is much, much different than it was in the previous formats.
I agree with you.
And I don't know. I think this deck, while it has like 2-mana spells, like 2-mana creatures to get on the board in front of Gideon, I don't think it does it in a particularly effective way. I would definitely.
I don't know. I think it does
advocate
a lot. I think Wasteland Strangler in this deck is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I had 4 in the deck that I made.
Like, I guess he just doesn't want to have so much removal.
Yeah.
Because if you play the decks that aren't like necessarily have all the creatures, like you're just gonna have so much like overflowing. But
I could see we got abbeys and caves. I could see like a couple displacers in here too.
Sure, Displacer with the White Orchid if you're ever behind on mana.
Fine, displacer with Avacyn is pretty terrifying.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna be the first to say this, and I'm probably gonna get yelled at for it.
Sure.
I don't think Avacyn is as good as everyone thinks it is.
Oh, you're gonna get yelled at for it by me right now.
Yeah, obviously.
You're crazy. It's
you're
unbelievable.
I
It's like
I just don't think it's. I think the card is awesome. I just don't think people are going to be able to build decks by harnessing all of the ability. Like not all. I don't want to say all because you don't need all. It's such a good card that you don't need all. But I don't think you're going to be able to build a deck that harnesses the abilities in a way that is backbreaking.
Okay, so I will agree.
Just look at your board right here, right?
Yeah.
If Avacyn flips, it kills every creature in your deck.
This is just a deck
I know.
with Avacyn in it.
Sure.
Like this deck is not.
So this
built,
deck's living in Avacyn's world.
Well, it just put Avacyn in it because Avacyn's a good card. Like you can do that,
Sure.
and you're probably gonna be like fine doing that. Oh yeah, Sorin. That card's great. I think this new Sorin is actually pretty good. It's really good against other planeswalkers. It can kill. It can kill most. It can kill every planeswalker, right? It can't kill a flip Jason live, but it can kill every other planeswalker.
Have I cast it? I have not cast it yet. However, I've seen it cast.
Avacyn is
I
good,
just
but
don't
it's
think.
not insane.
I think people are looking at it as just being so busted and not realizing that like when this card flips, it kills every single creature in the deck that the turn
all
prior
your own
gave
stuff,
indestructible.
and then it immediately kills your opponent.
Yeah. Well, it also still dies to Plummet. It still dies to Ultimate Price, Ruinous Path, Declaration,
Yep.
Stasis. Like every single removal, it doesn't protect itself.
Is it better or worse than Baneslayer? Better.
Better than Baneslayer. Yeah.
I think so.
I think
it
it's
does
better than
so
Baneslayer.
many different things. Like it's just so hard to play against this card. Like when your opponent has 5 mana untapped and is playing white, are you supposed to like attack because you want them to think that you have answers to it so that they wait another turn to play it? Are you supposed they're just gonna call you, play it, eat your dude, and like it's just horrible.
Yeah.
It's so good. But yeah, lifelink is a big deal, but like the thing about Baneslayer was that control decks that played Baneslayer had to tap out and hope that it's a much better control card than Baneslayer is. It might be a worse card in an aggro deck or a mid-range zoo deck. Like this card would never be in like that Kibler Baneslayer zoo deck.
Okay.
But like it would never be in like some random mid-range Naya deck. I mean it would be, but it wouldn't be as good as Baneslayer. But like in a control deck where you're leaving mana on tap, this card's unbelievable. If your opponent decides they don't want to play into your counter spells, you just attack with them a whole bunch of times. You just this and Ojutai's command, and your opponent just having fits. Like, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah. No, I agree. I've seen like people play it with the white blue decks, and I think that is very good. I just don't think it's as good.
I'll agree with you in that I'll say that I don't think the best Avacyn deck will be at the Open.
Okay, fair. That's kind of what I'm trying to put out
I don't
there.
think people will have understood how to build it perfectly and cohesively. I mean, Roanoke does pretty well at these things. Like, those dudes have probably been working for weeks. So, like, it depends on, like, if they found their best thing, are they even going to play it? Like, Jerry probably is. But, like, Brad's not. He's got a Pro Tour coming up, you know? So, like, it's tough to call. Like, even if they have their best deck, I'm unsure if, like, I think the best Avacyn deck probably has to have blue in it. But, like, what do? Do you just play a bunch of blue-white humans with Avacyns in that? It's not cohesive. Do you play, like, a bunch of flash cards that are, like, inherently underpowered when all you want to do is, like, be really aggressive week 1?
Or
like,
do
it's
you
tough.
build a white-red dragons deck where the 3 damage doesn't kill anything?
See, I thought of that, too. We actually talked about this.
Interesting.
I don't know if I talked about it with you. I might have just talked about it to myself when I was driving. But I think that, like, something like Thunderbreak Regent, Avacyn, Chandra, like, you got to dance around your curve a little bit. But, like, you get to play the best 2 removal spells, which are, in my opinion, Declaration in Stone and Draconic Roar.
Sure.
Because they're the ones that are both the most efficient and can have an additional payoff beyond being just a removal spell. Like the Exile, you know, you can exile things in multiples, or you can hit something that's really hard to deal with.
Yeah.
And the roar does damage that you can hit planeswalkers or cut their life total in half, etc., etc.
Definitely. All right, so we kind of went on a tangent on Avacyn. Let's go back to this deck. Is there anything else that looks interesting about this deck, or is everything else pretty much standard for what you'd expect to be in a black-white mid-range deck?
Yeah, it's super standard, and like the other thing that's interesting here is the Secure the Waste Westvale Abbey combo, if you will. End of turn, Secure the Waste for 4 or 5, untap with 5 creatures in play, activate Abbey, flip it, and attack.
Yeah, like it's a different avenue to fight, but in this deck, I don't think it's as it's important. Like if you're casting Secure the Waste for 5, you're probably winning the game with cards like Gideon and all the control stuff you have anyway.
This deck is filled with good cards that it wants to cast on curve.
Sure.
And it's filled with like removal spells that are efficient. It has minimal actual card advantage.
Yeah,
like
Read the
Secure the
Bones.
Waste is pseudo card advantage. Read the Bones goes up a card. Sorin is card advantage. There's some card advantage in like Knight, Strangler, maybe Hangerback Walker.
Sure.
But like it's all built into the cards. Like it doesn't have raw card advantage like I don't know. It just the thing about this deck is that I think that if you ever played against like a deck that was playing the right counter spells, it would just like flounder horrendously. It's just like almost everything operates at sorcery speed besides like the Avacyn Secure the Waste. Like I think Avacyn Secure the Waste is awesome because it gives your opponent like a whole bunch of tough decisions with regards to attacking, blocking, and like what mana they're gonna spend. But like even then, if your Secure the Waste doesn't fuel your Westvale Abbey immediately, their Declaration just kills all your guys.
Sure.
Like you have to build decks. You have to build your decks with like Avacyn in mind, Chandra in mind, Reflector Mage in mind, Declaration in Stone in mind, and then to a much lesser degree, you need to consider like the Eldrazi creatures and Kalidas. These are like the other good. Oh, and Jace too. But like a lot of decks can't kill Jace anymore, or can't kill Jace like
efficiently
right away.
Yeah, Silk Wrap does a good job at that.
I mean,
this deck kills it pretty good.
Yeah, there's 2 Silk Wraps and there's 3 Declarations. There's 5 ways to kill a turn 2 Jace.
Yeah, which is
it just lives a lot more than it used to.
Well, you have Anguish and you also have Runa's Path.
Yeah, but I mean, you get an untap once.
Sure.
I'm saying you get to untap with your, but like the value that you get from untapping with your Jace the first time is much less than it used to be. It used to be, oh, my Jace lived, okay, crack a fetch, play a spell, flip my Jace on turn 3. Like that would just be what would happen every time, and that's not at all what's going to happen anymore. You're going to discard a card and have 2 cards in your graveyard.
True.
So like, it's way different. But this deck specifically, I think it's fine. I think a deck like it'll probably crack the top 8. It's a decent strategy because it's filled with powerful cards, but it's not forced to be aggressive or controlling. It's a mid-range deck.
Yeah,
mid-range decks can do this.
You
like
can just morph
Abzan decks were great in week 1 of Con Standard. You know, some of these mid-range-ier Jeskai decks were great in week 1 of Battle Standard. Like this deck is fine. It's a great B+ deck.
Okay.
I don't love it, but I don't hate it either.
All right. Well, let's move on to a deck that we talked about that was done by Jerry. Here we are. That we said was going to probably be the easiest transformation from
ramp,
level 0.
red-green ramp.
But it's not just red-green ramp. So Ulamog's gone, or Ugin's gone. But look at this list here. He has 4 Rune and Wake and 4 Traverse.
Can we talk about that before we get off the black-white deck? I really wanted to respond to this one here. Mid-range isn't the same without Rhino and Abzan Charm.
Sure.
So I think, and I noticed your comment, and I really wanted to touch on it because it's an interesting thing that happens. So you need to think about the frame you have. Mid-range with Rhino and Abzan Charm was the defining mid-range deck of this era, of the past year and a half or whatever. But like there were great mid-range decks before that, and there will be great mid-range decks afterwards. Mid-range is really just about, you know, being able to grind out the aggressive decks, and then to put pressure on and attack from different angles on the control decks. It's a deck that has flexible options to go both ways. Mid-range is not, you know, Rhino and Abzan Charm is a great flavor of mid-range, and those 2 cards are fantastic for mid-range because they do both of what you want. They pressure a control opponent by itself in Siege Rhino, or they, you know, stabilize your life total against an aggressive deck, Siege Rhino obviously. Abzan Charm can protect your guys or kill a creature, and at the same time can draw you 2 cards against a control deck so you hit your land drops. Like, everything about those 2 cards screams like a perfect mid-range shell. But like before that, we had, you know, our mid-range decks were Courser of Krufix, That's another mid-range. Like,
Sure.
you know,
the Abzan Control mid-range kind of deck. They all had Rhino.
There was mid-range. There was Pack Rat mid-range. Those were mid-range
Sure.
decks
What about
too.
the red-white deck that had like Elspeth Sun's Champion in it? That was pretty aggressive. The ones that Brad Nelson and Valentine Mackel used to play.
Yeah, that was a mid-range deck.
Those were mid-range
sure.
decks.
Goblin, Ravelmaster, Elspeth
Mardu
Sun's
mid-range.
Champion, Storm Breath Dragon, Chain to the Rocks. That was a deck.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, mid-range is like saying mid-range isn't the same without Rhino and Abzan Charm. Like,
Well, it isn't the same. That's what he's trying to say.
I
think.
so deeply understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I just want you to remember that everything is relative to the environment in which it exists, and as a result, like something like me saying like, oh, you know, a tempo-based standard deck is just not the same without Manus Rider, or like a flexible blue deck is not the same without Manus Rider.
This card is yeah.
And that's only true if I want to.
Thanks
If I
for
want to
joining Team
restrict
KGS.
myself by that paradigm, like that's only true if I want to subscribe to that so deeply that I think that that I can't build an aggressive, blue X deck without a Manus Rider in it, because I definitely can. I just have to change it.
Sure, sure. In my opinion, mid-range, like the new aggressive decks are the new mid-range decks. Like mid-range and aggressive decks, they're right now, in my opinion, are molding together. And you saw this happen with the Atarka Red deck starting to, Raptor, Josh Arleden started to add Nissa to give it longer game.
Sure.
And they're making the cards, obviously the cards are getting more powerful with each set. And so the curve is becoming like, this card's good and aggressive, like Siege Rhino, good and aggressive decks, good in mid-range, just good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so like the aggressive decks are getting more cards like this. Like for instance, like Olivia.
Yep.
Like the new Olivia. Can be in a black-red aggressive deck, but it could also be in a mid-range deck because it's always fine.
So here's an interesting experiment. So Standard has all these mid-range cards, right?
Sure.
Like it has Gideon, Ally of Zendikar is it's a pretty good aggro card, but it's also a great mid-range card. Sylvan Advocate's a fantastic mid-range card.
Reflector Mage.
Reflector Mage is a reasonable mid-range card, but also a great aggro card. Also, yeah, and it's Hot Peppers. I wasn't attacking you at all. I just want I think Week 1 Standard's interesting because a lot of people get into that mindset, and that's just something that's super interesting to me in the way I approach the format. We all have the same pitfalls, so I just wanted to touch on that because I thought it helped everybody if we broke down that statement a little bit.
Sure.
Should have said the deck can't pressure control is effectively and will end up folding to it more than the old Rhino decks did. Oh yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think you just have to change the angle in which you pressure control a little bit. I'd probably go towards more Planeswalkers and that type of thing instead.
All right, well, moving on. Let's talk about one more deck. I started to go into it here. It's a green-red ramp.
Yeah.
The deck that we said was going to be the most, probably the easiest deck to transform old standard to new standard and still kind of be a deck. So, looking at this, the thing that really stands out to me, and Jerry's doing here in his test deck, is 4 Rune and Wake, 4 Traverse the, what is it, Ulvenwald? Ulvenwald. So, for those of you that don't know what that card does, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. However,
Delirium.
if you have Delirium, which is 4 more card types, search your library for a creature or land card and put it into your hand. Mm-hmm. So, this is kind of like taking the Eye of Ugin and being able to search for the creature if you have Delirium.
Yep.
While turn 1 being able to get your Wasteland, so that turn 2 you can cast Rune and Wake and then Rampant Growth.
Yep. So the thing about this card is that it's done something that really, really makes me mad.
Okay.
I've been testing a lot of Bant Company, and Bant Company plays 25 lands,
Okay.
and it tops out around 4. Couple Avacens in my deck, but it tops out effectively around 4, some 5 mana spells. I play 25 lands, and I have mana trouble all the time. This deck is casting Ulamog, did Ulamog, Atarka, and Worldbreaker, and it plays 23 lands. That just infuriates me. Traverse the Ulvenwald is very good because of that.
Sure.
It's a land early and action late. You won't get ramp flooded nearly as much when one of your ramp or land spells also is your Worldbreaker or your Ulamog on turn 20 when you top deck it. It's just so unbelievably efficient, flexible, and good.
Okay.
I love it.
So there's 2 things going on here. I want to answer this question by S. Reyes. He said basically if we think that the aggressive decks are going to more mid-range, would it be wise basically to cut the Sylvan Advocates and go they're in there mainly to deal with the aggressive decks because 2-3 body's really good. And so I want to say yes. I think like playing Deathcap Cultivator is better, especially in a deck like this, which with playing Traverse, you're trying to get to Delirium.
So you said you think the aggressive decks are...
No, he's saying that if we think the aggressive decks are going to move toward the mid-range, he would not want Sylvan Advocates. He'd want something else.
Oh, so do we think the format is slowing down by a couple turns, and that so that instead of a traditional red aggro deck, or like what a traditional aggro deck would be, the decks are controlling like turns 4 through 6 or 3 through 5 or whatever instead of the first 3 turns?
Yes.
Yeah, I do think that's true, because I think the best aggro card and the best mid-range card in the format is Collected Company.
Sure.
I just think it's the most powerful card in both of those strategies.
Sure.
So yes, turn 4 is like the focal turn. It's no longer, at a target's command on turn 3 that puts you at 7. Like, sure. So would I play?
So I would cut.
creature?
Yeah. So I would cut the Sylvan Advocates for the Deathcap Cultivators.
No, I think you'd do that if it was the other way around, right?
No,
Like, I
because Sylvan blocks. He's with the 3 body you want it against the aggressive decks. You want a road block that can block their creatures profitably or make them have to use a solid removal spell.
Wait, you'd rather have a 2/3 body than a turn faster against an aggressive deck?
Yeah, because your thing's never gonna live.
Well, they still have to take some time off to kill it. I think... See, I completely disagree. And, like, that's great, because this is part of what the show is most interesting when we actually disagree about something.
Yeah, true.
But, like, I completely disagree. I think that, like, you're not... Like, with 4 Ruin in the Wake, Pilgrimage, and Vegetation, like, you're plenty fast enough. And Ramp is one of the faster decks in the format. So, like...
The problem that you just said, though, is without having to traverse into the Rune and Wake, you're not ramping. You're just getting lands. Like,
yeah.
Rune and Wake puts in your hand, Traverse puts in your hand.
No, Ruin in the Wake with a waste.
With a waste, which you can only realistically get if you have, like, a turn 1 Evolving Wilds, happen to have the waste, or have the Traverse on turn 1.
Well, yeah.
And I'm not saying that's like, you have Oath of Nissa, you have a lot of ways to get it, but I'm saying there is a realistic number that's going to say that you're not going to have a waste on turn 2.
Yeah, there's a realistic amount of the time where that will be the case.
And so if there's
and
less...
you're still faster than most of the decks in the format.
Maybe. But 1 turn is a big turn. Like, being able to... If you don't have the Rune and Wake, you have literally no other 2-drops in your deck.
Yeah.
No
you have
2-drops.
8 2-drops. You have 4 Advocates.
4 and 4. That's what I'm saying, but we're replacing the Advocates.
With Deathcap Cultivators?
Yeah, because if you add the Deathcap Cultivator, what you're saying now is that the format is going to be formulated by a turn 4 big play from the aggressive decks at Collected Company, which then, if they're not killing you right away, you play the Cultivator and you can get right to the Explosive Vegetation.
Sure, but then, like, what's happening here is we're taking, like, putting a lot of pressure on our Explosive Vegetations, and we're making, like, Pilgrimage is a little weird here. When you're Pilgrimaging with an extra mana, like, Pilgrimage is supposed to be, like, your tap-out play, and then, like, you've made it so, like, you have an extra mana, and, like, you're going to want to cast Vegetation that turn, and when you don't have it, like, your rampant creature didn't actually do anything. Because you just play Pilgrimage.
That's a real thing, but you're also going to be able to play Oath of Nissa or Traverse with that extra mana.
Yeah, I don't like Advocate in this deck for, like, completely different reasons than what we've been saying. I just don't think it feeds the plan really well at all. It's like a creature that dies. It's a creature that gets Reflector Maged. And, like...
Read what? He's saying he was playing...
Vessel of Volatility.
Who else is playing Vessel?
Oh, this guy here, this maniac.
I tested it for a while. I think it's good. I didn't test it in the ramp deck, though, but I do think turn 2 Vessel into turn 4 Chandra is a real thing. I don't know what the right shell will be for that, but it's very good.
Does Advocate have value against control? Yeah, because they kind of have to kill every single thing you play. So it does have value against control?
Yeah, but at the same time, they can just take 2, take 2, take 2, then once by the time they stabilize it, just kill it at the end of your turn.
It gets under Transgress.
Yeah.
But they can't, like, not have removal spells in their deck, so, like, it's just going to eat a removal spell at some point. So I don't think it's particularly good against control. I wouldn't ever take it out.
Yeah, especially if it's Esper. They're going to have exile effects because they know you're playing Worldbreaker.
Yeah, they just have to play removal spells because that's what's in their deck.
Yeah.
Setting aside the speed of my ramp deck, how good is Kozilek's Return at controlling the current aggro shells? Will the deck be able to get to the late game and all in these matchups? The front half of Kozilek's Return, the half that you actually cast, is borderline unplayable in my opinion. Do you agree?
I agree.
The format is
I think there's so many 3 toughnesses right now.
By a bunch of efficient 3 toughness creatures.
And not to mention, like, it's good versus the token strategy, so we just showed the black-white mid-range deck. But it's like, when they're taking the game over, they're winning the game. Like, they're at a point in the game where, like, even if you have Kozilek's Return, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
Because
if
they're
you-
just going to play their next spell. And
Like, if you Kozilek's Return, like, that black-white deck, it just doesn't even... And, I mean, I know you're asking, like, how to control aggressive decks, which, like, the black-white deck really isn't. But, like, it's not good against Bant Company. It hits, like, a couple spells at best. It's not good against any of the, like... It's not great against the humans deck because they're usually, like... Dahlia's Lieutenant has happened, like, that turn or a turn before that. Your Kozilek's Return. So it's just like, No, I don't know. I don't like Kozilek's Return. I think Radiant Flames is great if someone can figure out how to play it. But the mana is real tough.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to get the third in there. All right, so the one thing that I wanted to like highlight, other than the fact that this is changing the face of how the decks are playing on turns 1 and 2, because you don't see any hangerback walkers in here,
Yep.
which is interesting. It's a new thing. Is this card right here. And it's forgotten. Let me tell you, people forgot about this card. Shaman of Forgotten Ways. Sorry, Justin Wynn, I'm about to bring you up here in a bad story. So he was playing a ramp mirror. This was in Houston?
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't in Houston. This was in, not Oakland.
It wasn't in Oakland because he top-8'd with
Top
Red
8
Black
with
Dragons,
Black
right?
Dragons.
Humble,
this is when he
humble
played.
brag.
I can't remember the tournament, but he was playing against his opponent, and this was at a GP, and he completely forgot about the formidable. Formidability.
And, like, didn't kill his opponent?
And no, he died to it.
Oh, his opponent just Bio-Rhythmed him?
Yeah. So,
That's awesome.
This is another card, by the way, that in this deck looks really great to me because it lives through Kozilek's Return and doesn't die to cards like Dead Weight if they're going to see play, but ramps your mana.
Yeah.
Not as good as it used to in the old red-green decks. You know, the old
Yep.
red-green ramp decks, the creature ones with Whisperwood in that. But provides you with a win condition that not a lot of people are prepared to face. And what I mean by that is a lot of people have removal spells set for World Breaker at this point. Ulamog, you can't really worry about it because it's a cast trigger. And Dragon Lord.
It's good that you can only activate it with Formidable, because
Sure.
if you could just activate it for 11, and like your opponent like flashed in Avacyn and then killed your dude in response and you died or something like that,
Oh
it'd be
my
really
God.
funny.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
So like it's good that you have to have all these things to activate it so that like people aren't activating it and then dying in response, because I think they would just not want to play the card if that happened. So yeah, I don't know. This card's definitely like really forgotten. I think this is the type of card that like no one will see for 3 months, and then Brad Nelson will just like win a GP with this card in his deck and be like, "What is wrong with you people?"
Sounds about right. What do you think of Clip Wings? I've had a lot of people ask me about this card over Plummet.
I think this is one of the best sideboard cards you can have for the first week.
Okay.
I think it's top 5.
You think this is better than Plummet? Tell me why this
Hands
is better.
down better than Plummet.
Why is it better than Plummet?
Because it gets a blocking Ojutai out of the way.
Okay.
Because you don't have to worry about them flashing an Avacyn to protect their creature in response.
But if they do that and they have Stratostancer, you can at least kill the Avacyn with the trigger on the stack.
Sure. I mean, obviously there's cards
There's
that
plays.
that
There's
flip
like
it the
Archangel
other way.
Atai.
There's like if your opponent has Eldrazi Skyspawn or the Thunderbreak Regent, this card does nothing.
Sure.
It kills a 2/1 and then you die to the dragon.
Sure.
Which is already hard enough to like. So, I think against something like Ojutai, this is much better, obviously. But overall, I would probably Flyabolic Edict.
Oh my
That's
god.
a rock solid. That's
That
a rock
is.
solid pun. You should tweet that at LSV. He would love it.
Flyabolic.
Flyabolic Edict. I love it. I think that card's great, though. I would rather play this than Plummet. I think that most of the decks that have flyers will have only a couple high impact flyers.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you said you didn't want to touch too much on what you're doing for Baltimore. So
I mean, I just don't really know what I'm going to play yet.
okay, fair enough.
Honest is I'm not going to be like, oh, super secret tech or whatever. I just don't know. We've tested a lot of decks.
So I'm kind of on the same camp as you. I will put out for next week what I'm going to be playing at the Invitational, and to give you kind of like a spoiler alert, Brian Brondewin tweeted last night while I was watching a movie at my house about basically, I don't know the verbatim for what the tweet was, but it was in, it made me smile because he was like, basically, I wonder if anyone's tried the green-white hardened scales deck without hardened scales. And you know that I've been playing this deck, mono green, basically the entire deck without hardened scales.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty good. Like, it's had mild testing. I think the matchups that I played against you and Aiden, another guy that comes down to the store a lot, are tough because you're both playing the exact cards that my deck doesn't want to see. But I do think, like, spoiler alert, next week you will see a list that probably has green in it and has some cool cards like Manor Gorge or
Rot
Hydra.
Shambler.
Rot Shambler, yeah, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason why I like Clip the Wings, or the Clip the Wings Plummet, is because I'm playing one of those, if not both of those, in my sideboard. And I want to know what everyone else thinks what's better. So
I think that Clip
maybe
the Wings
both
is better. But I think that if you have a real huge problem with flying creatures, I could see
maybe play
2-in-1.
2-in-1, yeah, that could be a thing.
But it says, oh, let's talk Baltimore. I mean, we will. We'll talk about it. Like, I'll talk about what we expect and stuff.
All right, what do you expect?
I mean, I don't 100% know what I'm playing yet. I think there'll be I think the most played decks will be Black-Red Vampires, which I don't actually think is a good deck, and Green-Red Ramp and Black-White Midrange.
I also think there's going to be a lot of Blue-Red Prowess because people want that deck to be good.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's necessarily good. I'm not going to say it's not, but I think the list that I've seen you make, I've seen other people make, and the ones that I've like looked at and like kind of like people have like sent in to me, I've been like, it's missing something. Like Thing and Ice is a great card, but it's not like insane.
I think Thing of the Ice is an insane card. I just don't think the shell is there.
That's what. Okay.
The support is not there.
Sure, the card is fine, but the support is not.
If you want to play Thing in the Ice, I think you have to play like the old Prowess deck or like a Tormenting Voice, Magmatic Insight, Madness deck. Both of which I think just play a bunch of inferior cards just to maximize the equity on Thing of the Ice.
Sure.
Which I just think is a little bit dangerous thing to be doing. If you get a super, like the format shakes out and you know what you want to kill and you can figure out like how many Tempers, I mean Temper should be 4 probably anyway, how many just the Winds or how many like of whatever bounce spells you want and whatever other removal spells you play in addition to that, like I think that you might be able to do it. I think if you have a lot of situations where Thing in the Ice just lives, but it doesn't, like it doesn't live all the time.
The awkward thing is when like Thing and Ice is at 1 counter and your opponent has to use a removal spell, and instead of killing the creature, it actually just bounces it. I've had that happen numerous times because the trigger goes on the stack, and it's like kind of awkward. So that's just something. For Baltimore, like I already told you my prediction, I don't think there'll be a heavy blue deck in the top 8. I'm standing by that. I kind of agree with you.
Dude, you have no faith in me.
I don't have faith in you. Well, I don't think you're going to play a mono blue deck either.
I'm not going to play a mono blue deck, that's for sure. It's so tough to be aggro with Thing in the Ice because when you play Thing in the Ice, you need to take up your turns to play a lot of spells to make sure your Thing in the Ice can flip before you've wasted all the time you've invested.
You want to hear something really cool that's maybe a modern thing?
Sure.
I was looking through the stack upstairs.
Yeah.
And I was like, Josh, why is this card pulled aside? Guess what card it was? Double black 7/7. Hunted Horror. You give your opponent 2 creatures, then to flip Thing and Ice. Doesn't return the horror. And you can return their tokens and then turn them sideways. So that's pretty funny to me. But I don't know. As far as Baltimore, I think it's going to be, like you said, there's going to be. Thanks for joining the team.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I think that like if you want to play a blue-red Thing in the Ice deck, your best bet is to do something like be aggressive in the first game. I mean, be controlling in the first game and just play like Thing in the Ice's, Jace's, and a bunch of removal.
Okay.
And then like play some Storm Chaser Mages and the 4/9 Angel in your sideboard. So when people have boarded boarded down on removal spells,
sure,
and like they're playing around your Thing in the Ice so that like all their mana investments don't get bounced. They're playing like non-creatures and stuff.
Yeah,
you can attack them with your flyers.
So Hunted Horror could go and collect a company deck with Thing and Ice, Doran, and Spellskite.
Why don't you just play blue-black?
All right. Maybe just blue-black with
Leyline of Company.
Hey, I just want to make it work. All right, I want Doran to get in there. The whole thing is that'd be sweet because it'd be like swinging.
I'll tell you what is cool though. When you flip your thing in the ice, you bounce your Goblin Dark Dwellers for maximum value.
This card is
Oh my god.
Shiny Psyduck. That's a cool name.
Great. Thanks for joining Team KJS.
We should get
appreciate
a
it.
third member of the show whose job is to just like look at the names of the people in the Twitch chat
And then rate each show, which is the best one.
Yeah.
And we'll give the pack to. We'll give this pack of Avison
best
Chesma.
name.
Okay, so we talked about standard. We talked about limited. We talked about the bannings.
We did.
Let's talk about some events that are coming up besides that.
Besides SCG Baltimore.
So SCG Baltimore, then we have the Invitational, obviously. What we have going on here on Saturday, we have, if you're local, we have an IQ going on. And Sunday we have a PPTQ, both new
This
standard.
card is
Yeah, and win. We're winning.
Oh, nice.
Appreciate that. Thanks for joining the team, KGS. And coming up on April 30th, I'm still wearing the shirt. Gamers helping gamers. I could stand up, I
Wearing
guess.
a
That would help.
regular shirt. Long sleeve swag.
We have the 2K tournament here on April 30th. If you're local and you're not going to GP Toronto,
This card is
then come on down.
Magic Mormon, you win.
Yes! Winner! We got a winner.
That was a good one.
Thanks for joining 2K.
Shiny
Appreciate
Psyduck,
it.
Magic Mormon.
Buy out of Haunted Horror. Yeah, get it.
Buying Haunted Horror. Hunted
On Moto,
Horror.
Hunted
You're
Horror.
probably not having much luck there if you don't even know how to name the card.
Buyout. Oh, okay. So we talked about the events. One thing I do want to talk about, MTG Finance. We were right last week. Let's talk about it.
Archangel
Not
of
humble
Tides?
brags. We talked about two cards, Westvale Abbey and Archangel of Tides. Both cards doubled in price
Sure.
the day after.
This card is gas.
Mrs. Pear. Thanks for joining the team.
I don't
Appreciate
even know
it.
what that name means. That's
So-
a great name, but
So
I'm
all
not
I'm going to
sure
say
why.
is, the day after they doubled in price, is that a coincidence?
It is.
Okay.
No, like, I think Archangel Tights was prone for a bump. I think Avaricious Dragon is some of the warmest garbage imaginable. The hottest garbage, if you will. But I think Archangel of Tights is absurd. And the number of cards in the format that kill Archangel of Tights and are not Declaration of Stone is like 3.
This is true. All right, so for everyone, this is going to pretty much wrap up this week's episode. We're going to report back next week. Kevin will have the inside
I will
scoop
have some results.
on what's going on.
Hopefully
Standard.
of a Standard Open
I'll be
and
able
not
to
a Classic, which means I hopefully won't have had to play in
little
the
bit of
side
both.
event.
and I'll be able to, I guess, break down what I've seen on the coverage, as well as play a couple local tournaments and see if I can crack the code, so to speak, on what decks, both standard and modern, I'm going to be playing.
Want me to answer this before we roll out?
Yeah, we can answer it.
What will the winner's circle be like at the SCG? All right, so Dan says no blue decks. I say a ramp deck, an aggressive 1 to 2 ramp decks, an aggressive red deck that could be vampires.
Sure.
I don't think a blue-red prowess deck will top 8. I'll draw the line at less than 1, so maybe 1 will.
Okay.
1's the top end.
White weenie.
I
This
think
card is gas.
a blue-white humans deck.
Appreciate it. Thanks for joining the team.
I think a 2 mid-range black decks, so either black-red or black-white.
Okay.
And I think a blue tempo-ish aggressive deck.
Okay.
Either a red-blue like Flyers Stopters deck, or a red-blue Dragons deck, a blue-white like flashy type deck with Avacons in it,
Sure.
or a Bant Company deck.
Okay.
Or blue-green Company
I
deck.
do think there'll be a company deck in the top 8, for sure.
I think the Company deck has to be blue, too.
All right.
pretty much. I don't think black-green is very good.
All right, we're going to do our send-off here. For those of you that this is your first show, I'll kind of go over this. We haven't done this in a while. So you can go on our website, on our featured videos, like a day or two after, and you can rewatch the video if you came in halfway through. Also, it'll be back on Twitch later today. We kind of do this little thing at the end here where we put a couple videos up and kind of like send off. So we're about to enter the send-off zone. And the first video we're going into, a little shout-out to him. He just made the Hall of Fame. Oh, that's right, the Godfather himself. So, as opposed to just magic.
Haunted
I'm a
Horror,
person-
Torpor Orb.
Yeah, that's combo. Besides magic, I'm a big fan of wrestling.
I was a big fan of wrestling in 8th grade.
You were. I know your brother Derek somewhere. He's
I got
cut
out.
And
My only in-school suspension
all I gotta
of
say
my
is
career.
it's time to get aboard the Ho train with the Godfather. So mad props to this guy. He's in the Hall of Fame. He deserved it. All right. So one thing I gotta ask you, Kevin.
Yeah.
This card is
Are you ever gonna play a deck that I built and like say, hey, Kevin, play this deck, it's good? Are you ever gonna do it?
Probably.
Thank you for following. We appreciate that. Welcome to the team.
At some point, I think it'll I think your best line is to like not tell me you built a deck.
Because I feel like you're the daddy, and in this relationship, I'm the mommy, and the daddy never listens to the mommy. But the mommy knows
defiant.
best.
The daddy is defiant.
You are. You're like the daddy that went out drinking and then came home, and the mommy's like, the kids are sleeping.
That's a trope. Don't
Like-
make so much noise.
Like, what are you doing?
I'm just taking my shoes off. Give me a break.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes you have good ideas. I think at some point you're supposed to knuckle down and
All right, and this one.
focus on a couple good decks instead of building a ton of brews. But
This is true. I will.
someday you'll get me.
And this one goes out. These guys are NXT. They just made it this week. Enzo and Cass. They made their debut. Alright, this is the last video of the day, and then we're going to send off here. We're out of here. Alright, so the reason why I like brewing a lot is because it's...
You're soft, you're sloppy.
Soft. S-A-W-F-T. Soft.
Beat up July.
Counterspell. Thanks for joining the team. Oh, 2 blue mana up? Not today.
Not today.
Mother may I.
Resolving spells.
You know what else? Yeah, that is pretty soft. That is pretty soft. So I don't know. I like to brew a lot because it's fun. You can build decks. And you get to talk about decks that people aren't ready for. And I love attacking from that angle. It's like, sure, I can play the best deck. Maybe this PT I will. We'll see.
This is quite the window into their upbringing. What? Liking wrestling or playing mediocre or being super stubborn in our ways and playing mediocre decks all the time.
And then talking about how stubborn we are about our mediocre decks. WrestleMania 32, the best moment for me. All I gotta say is, woo woo woo, you know it. Zack Ryder 25, what is this? All the WrestleManias he's been, at least 10 years I think now, he won a belt and then they took it from the next day. But it was my favorite moment of that.
WrestleMania 36 was recently.
Yes.
What about Shane O'Mac on the team?
Shane O'Mac was okay. He did great. Everyone knew he was going to do that, though. If you entered WrestleMania and you didn't think Shane O'Mac was going to jump off the cage, then, like, come on.
What is the thing
Get
he
your head
used to
checked.
do?
The elbow drop.
No.
With the money dance? The
No,
money shake?
it's like a back flip, but it's like a front flip. It was his move.
I don't know. He's getting too old. He
Shooting
probably can't
star?
do it. Something like that. He jumps from one side of the ring and puts a garbage can on the other side and, like, kicks the people with it. He did that. That was cool. I don't know. These guys are awesome, by the way. When we saw an NXT show in Albany, like, I mean, it was definitely the best group that came out here. This guy, Enzo, the shorter one, he says one of his lines is, he's got a gift for gabbing and a gift for jabbing. This, like, totally, like, the character you would love.
These dudes are cool. I like
Yeah,
these guys.
no, they're ready. I'm
This
just
show
stoked,
makes me
dude.
want to follow wrestling.
Yeah, you need to
I
follow
need to know
wrestling.
what's going on with these things.
Yeah, these guys, look at this
And
guy.
that guy's face.
He's just great. Look at him. And he wears, like, Yankee socks and stuff. It's, like, your favorite.
Shooting star press. That's what he used to do.
Okay. That was a cool moment, actually. HBK, Stone Cold, and Mick Foley. And then Stone Cold was going to be, like, doing his little dance with the New Day, and then he stunned him. Kev's not going to be. Sorry. He's got Modern.
We got Modern at the other shop tonight. It's the last time Eldrazi can be played, and I think my brother's playing it. But I'm gonna play that format for the last time. And yeah.
Thanks a lot. We appreciate the ad, and welcome to Team KGS.
Go when I'm ready.
Dude, they keep going. Look at this. It's great.
Talking the talk, call you soft.
I'm calling you soft. Did you say
These guys
that?
are basically like the Hardy Boys Redux, right?
No, not even close. They actually beat up the Hardy Boys on Raw. They called them out. That was their entrance.
Jeff Hardy is
Or not Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys. I guess.
No, Jeff Hardy, man, Swanton Bomb.
Okay, I know. He did the ladder match.
broke
I get
so
it.
many bed frames at 12 years old.
Or was that from Travis putting you through them?
Well, he was littler, so I would do the pile driver to him.
Oh, okay.
And the Swanton bomb is 120 pounds of pure adrenaline.
Oh my god. All right. Well, I hope everyone had fun as we usually do these videos. We'll see you next week. And that's gonna do it. And as always, this is Kevin Jones, the master of the Manus Rider. And guess what? Should I sell? I think like I almost don't want to say it because it's just gonna be like too crazy. So I'm gonna say it, but I feel like I don't want to say it. This is Kevin Jones, the master of the Manus Rider, and you can't teach that.
And this is Dan Ward. He's 6'6", and you can't teach that.
You heard it here from us. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Take
Thank
care,
you, guys.
y'all.
Some strange force is working on this world, twisting it into a bent reflection of itself. I've traveled the roads of Innistrad, searching for the meaning of this change. But all I find are more questions. Curses grow stronger. Monstrous thirsts cannot be sated, and the living are once again haunted by the dead. The source of this evil must be found before its dark presence consumes the world. Consumes me. Strange clues. A trail of dark magic. A tangled web of insanity. But the knots are unraveling. Those who once protected the world now fly on blood-stained wings. They've led me here, to this consecrated ground, to this madness.